Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is again Nelson Santini, and on behalf of Trident Proposal Management, I'll be hosting today's webinar on joint ventures and mentor protege programs and does that apply to OASIS Plus, the solicitation that is upcoming here, in the fall. Again, if you're tracking this acts on your SAM system or in Deltec or like system, this is for solicitation 47 Quebec Romeo Charlie Alpha, 21 November 001. This is a pursuit update, again, sponsored by Trident Proposal Management. Some key takeaways for the presentation today. Number one, start your capture early and organize and plan for a long haul, because we're going to be actually chasing Polaris for a hot second. If you're a small business, make sure that you begin to evaluate your teaming situation, and we're going to be talking about that here in this particular presentation, some suggestions and some factors to consider as you enter the world, or if you want to enter the world of the mentor protege JV situation. Also, make sure that you try to be, as much as possible, to be an easy company to work with from the perspective of the government. And also, as I've said before in the previous session, make sure you're working on your pricing strategy, because that's going to play a role. Today's webinar is sponsored by Trident Proposal Management, founded in 2008. Trident is a veteran-owned business out of San Diego, specializing in anything proposal related for the federal government or state and local agencies as well. So anything from pipeline development, market research, evaluation, capture management, proposal writing, and proposal management, and also teaching and on coaching for oral presentations and other more sophisticated services, all under the umbrella of Trident Proposal Services. I am your speaker, Nelson Santini, about 25 years of experience in sales for the federal government with over $2 billion in won awards. I'm an avid sales operations blogger, so if you want to actually just discuss anything related to sales operations, I'm available. Just hit me up at nelson@tridentproposals.com. And also, if you have any questions about your capture process, or you want to improve your game, please, by all means, hit me up on email at nelson@tridentproposals.com. The agenda for today, fairly straightforward. We're going to be talking about the OASIS timeline, do a quick review. We're going to be verifying, again, the qualification process as far as the domains and the scorecard, that's going to be used. We're also going to be talking about the joint ventures and MPs as far as a strategy to make sure that you have your best foot forward to qualify, and bid for the government. And then we're going to have a QA session at the end. In the process of the presentation, if you have any questions, make sure that you hit your chat box and you drop me a message. I'll be glad to stop on by and have a dialogue with you. That's where we have these sessions. All right, well, with that said, let's just basically do a quick recap. Why OASIS and why basically have a services smack? First of all, it was to expand professional human services services. It was to basically just put all of the best-in-class providers under one umbrella. And it was basically for the government to consolidate the expenditures and the administrative charges of having multiple contract vehicles for all of these services. So they're trying to get smart. They want to make sure that we have everything under one umbrella. So it's a lot easier for the program managers to assign tasks, track costs, and make sure they have an eye on everything that's happening under the contract vehicle. So this is supposed to result in a facilitation or making it easier to award task orders. And again, also provide additional flexibility to the cores and to those managing the contract to make sure they can issue awards for companies that may otherwise be excluded. So this is one of those things where they want to have flexibility in awarding contracts, and also having the ability to have multiple services under one contract vehicle. As I mentioned before, one of the coolest things that we have is we finally have a name. It's OASIS Plus. So instead of calling it the Big Mac, the SMAC, or anything else, we're just going to call it OASIS Plus. Apparently, the name of OASIS was actually a strong enough contract vehicle that everybody was associated and familiar with, that they're just going to make it OASIS Plus to indicate that there are going to be other contract vehicles that are going to be roll under what it was OASIS before. So OASIS Plus from here on out, at least we have a formal name. The contract remains the same. It's slated to be about a 10-year contract with a 5-year base and a 5-year option period for professional services. It's going to be a dual track, meaning that it's going to be for small businesses and for regular businesses as well. And they're going to be grouping domains to basically just make NAICS under domains, so they can have different blocks and use those blocks within the contract vehicle to assign business to different companies. And they're going to be issuing awards that are going to be of pretty much every flavor. So firm fixed price, cost plus, time and material, task orders, all of those things will be able to go through the contract vehicle. And the best news is that there's about $50 billion that are slated for this 10-year IDIQ. So it's going to have a fairly stout ceiling for companies to bring business to it. If you're looking at the timeline for the particular contract that we have, it's been updated as of the day of the 22nd, which is today. Pretty cool date, June 22. We're expecting the release to happen still in the fall. So after the madness of end of fiscal year, we expect this solicitation to be let out. That's actually in the first block in green. We expect that the companies were going to be submitting their data into the electronic system, and the awards are going to begin to happen sometime, about a year from today. That's where we're going to expect to see the first awards happening through the end of the fourth quarter of the fiscal year. And that's to allow for companies to be onboarded onto the OASIS Plus, and for other companies to basically off-ramp from the previous OASIS contracts. So there's going to be some overlap. So expect, again, that this timeline may move a little bit, but it actually just remain exactly as we're saying, kind of like Q4 for the solicitation to be led. Responses will come on in, awards beginning about a year from today, and then beginning the transition period for the funds to be used and be actually just being moved from OASIS to OASIS Plus. As far as actually the procurement expectations, we expect that we're going to have multiple industry days, just like as we had for OASIS. There are going to be multiple RFIs and RFPs. And as I was basically just putting the presentation, or updated the previous presentation, I should say, sure enough, the government actually just let out the first RFI and sources sought that we had seen in about a year. So expect that the process is now going to begin to happen. We don't expect it to be anything frantic. It's one of those things that I hate to say, hurry up and wait, but pretty much it's going to be what we expect, that we're going to start from this particular process to go into little spurts of RFIs, and sources sought, validation of ideas and suggestions on how to shape out the contract vehicle. And that is going to solicit actually having a few more industry days. So expect that those happen. My suggestion to you is please make sure that you make every effort as much as possible and it's feasible to you to participate from these activities. That way your name is actually just known by the staff, by the cores, and also by the evaluating team. And that way, you are in the best position for people to know who you are ahead of time. As we move along, let's move to the first element just to talk about, how is the contract going to be organized? And literally what's going to happen is that the government is expecting to have some NAICS group into some domains, right? So you're going to have a block of NAICS under domain A, B, C, D, and E, and so on and so forth, right? And this is actually so that they can actually just begin to track and organize the funds by similar groups. This has an inherent benefit in that if your company doesn't necessarily is participating in or has qualified under one NAIC, you're going to be able to bid in those contracts if you are within that domain or pool, if you want to use that particular term. So expect that those domains are going to basically be grouped or have groups of NAICs that are similar in nature. And again, allowing some flexibility to the core and to industry to make sure that some contracts are awarded through those domains that may not fit exactly one cookie cutter mold. As you're looking here on the right-hand side, you can see that those domains are going to be on two major groups. On one side, we will have the engineering, research and development, logistics and management, with some facilities, and then Intel, environmental, and enterprise services. And group two is going to be more of your administrative, so finance, human resources, admin, social services, and the likes. And so I'm highlighting here the levels and or the segments in orange, as these are some expanded services, things that are coming new into this particular contract vehicle. And we understand from tracking the budget that the government is putting some additional funds into these categories. So these are areas that are going to be of interest and are going to be consuming some of the funds of the ceiling, which we expect to be right around $50 billion. So a lot of money going to be spent in this particular area. As far as the scorecard methodology and what we expect to see, we expect that we're going to have a weighted average system. And so this is to say that we're going to have multiple factors that are going to be assigned a particular weight, and then it's going to give you the combined scoring. If you're familiar with what's going on in Polaris, this is exactly the MO that the government is migrating. And they're doing this so that they can actually just live true to the acronym of the contract, which is a best-in-class, a BIC, a best-in-class contract. So they want to make sure that they're selecting and qualifying the best companies. There is no ceiling expected in the number of companies that they will have in OASIS, but they want to make sure they basically do the work with the ones that are the best qualified. And this is how they're going to be making those discriminations on a weighted scorecard methodology. One of the things that are going to be important is to, again, for the government to qualify if you are at one of those top tiers and ready companies to do work with. So double stomp on the floor. Again, make sure that you're looking at your systems and policies, your certifications, and your experience, just to make sure that you're conveying to the government that you have those qualifications and that you're an easy company to do work with, a low risk kind of company. And so that's going to be to your benefit. So all of these factors are going to be hashed out through the scorecard. Again, my encouragement to you is to make sure that as we are in this particular lull between now and the end of the fiscal year, expecting the solicitation, that you revisit your systems, policies, and certifications just to make sure that everything is actually in its best shape possible. Another thing that you actually, can do right now, and I recommend that you do, is looking at your qualifying project. And this is going to be the evidence that you're going to use to convince the government that you can actually just do the things that you say you're going to do under the contract vehicle. These are going to be task orders or single awards that are going to be in size of a $250,000, $250,000 or more. And they're going to be looking at a 5-year window from the actual timeline or the solicitation. So it's going to be critical for you to begin to organize your past performance. If you don't have a past performance database, this is probably the time to make sure you begin to organize all of your files and to make sure that you actually just have all of your data in a way that you can retrieve it and then feed it into the system for evaluation. Make sure that you actually have that. And one of the things that I noticed when I was reading the solicitation, or at least the draft documents that are available, is the fact that it's not going to be just providing 5 qualifying projects. They're probably going to ask you to provide the 5 qualifying projects as the evidentiary ones, but also basically to make sure you have a larger pool of qualifying projects to make sure that you're not basically just providing the 5 projects that you have done work under. So again, make sure you track all of your activity, make sure that you are organizing those contract vehicles so that you can just glean from them the data that's going to be relevant for you to actually use in this contract and also in many other contracts that will come that will follow a very similar format. On the scorecard methodology, this is just a simple point, just to make sure that as you're looking at qualifying projects, think ahead as far as when the solicitation is going to be let out and understand that, that's going to be what's going to drive the 5-year window for your contract vehicles or qualifying projects that are going to apply for your point scorecard. So make sure that you're looking, organize your data, and make sure you give yourself some leeway as far as, what you're selecting today and what you think you're going to be using in the future. So the chart is kind of to illustrate that the key thing is that in the qualifying projects, if they're related to services, that you're deriving direct revenue from those in a window that is 5 years from where the award is supposed to happen or where the solicitation is going to be led. So again, leave yourself some room, organize your past performance, make sure that you pull all your qualifying projects and organize them into a way that you can actually just use them and draw the data that you need to get the best points possible on your scorecard. And again, the key element here is to make sure that you're showing the proof. So again, make sure that you have the best projects from a block of projects. And again, this is so you can have flexibility on what to pick. And again, when we start talking about the joint ventures, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this area as far as what counts as a project that you can use for the benefit of your scorecard in the particular activity. I'm making a point here just to talk about pricing data. And we're talking about pricing data from the perspective that although there is no pricing that's going to happen in the evaluation of the award for OASIS Plus, there's going to be actually evaluation of data that's going to be related to the task order awards. So one of the things that would be in your best interest is to make sure that you have either a Schedule 70 or a schedule of services on GSA, have a product catalog, and make sure that, for that pricing catalog that you have all of the tools and mechanisms and the procedures that you follow to manage the pricing, manage the configuration of those products so that it's a lot easier for you to actually just get the not only the award of OASIS Plus, but also the discrete awards within OASIS Plus. So a double stump in here, again, planning ahead, looking at the long game, make sure you begin to have a pricing catalog that you're going to be able to use after you qualify for OASIS Plus. So double stump, pricing data may play an important role, and we don't know if the government can actually just include this into the requirements for the solicitation and for the evaluation. There has been some debate about this element, and again, the decision for now is it's going to be at the task order level. It never hurts to be prepared, for the task order level in case that they pull it forward to the solicitation level as it regards to pricing. And the last topic for the day, or the one we're going to be spending some more additional time, is actually for the small businesses versus on the unrestricted block. We're going to be helping all companies, and by we, I mean Trident Proposal Services. It's going to be helping multiple companies to basically go through this particular process. OASIS is going to be multi-track. One is for small businesses. The other one is for the unrestricted. And so I'm going to spend some time now talking about, on the element for small businesses. What are some of the options that you have related to how you can form a joint venture, perhaps join a mentor protege program, so you can actually just leverage the past performance, qualifying projects, and the experience of the mentor to complement your scorecard and score higher in the system. So with that said, I'm going to hit a quick pause, take a look at the screen to make sure there are no questions. I see none on the screen. So in case that you have a particular question, please raise your hand. We're here to have a dialogue, and I hope this information has been useful for you. So as it relates to small business, OASIS is actually going to be applicable to all small businesses, woman-owned small businesses, veteran-owned 8As, hub zones. And one of the debates that is going on right now is exactly how do they segment these, if at all, and how to basically strike a balance between no segmentation and micro-segmentation. That hasn't been hashed out. I have not read through the latest changes that came out yesterday, specifically as it relates to segmentation, but we expect that there are going to be some pools that may come under the area of the small business category. So be on the lookout for those. When it comes down to the mentor protege and the joint venture, I expect that this is going to be a strategy that other companies are going to use as well, where they're going to be combining efforts to make sure they have a better probability of qualifying higher into the point matrix, and actually after that pursuing task orders for the customers that are going to be coming to OASIS Plus to fund their projects, right? Expect that there's going to be some continued litigation on this particular topic, not, I guess for your company, but in general, as the solicitation takes shape. If you're aware, there was some protests related to Polaris and mentor protege and JV programs. We expect that those are going to continue to happen, and that, they'll plead a case again to eliminate the mentor protege joint venture program for the contract. Just because it's some people are considering it to be unfair for some of the MPs, JV elements that are pulling together, right? It's kind of like where some larger companies are just making an approach to smaller companies so they can get into the small businesses pool. Shouldn't be a problem for this particular contract because it's going to have dual tracks. So small businesses and regular businesses should be aligned on their end. And if there's a joint venture, it should be standing on its own or evaluated on its own, right? But I expect that this is going to be one of those topics that's going to be morphing as we move, especially being that we have at least 1 year for the solicitation to be awarded. And so to that end, so that you can be familiar, I've done some legwork for you so you don't have to go to the FAR, or at least give you some references. So if you have to go to the FAR, if you want to partake on that strategy, so you can actually find it a lot easier to figure out, if I am a small business or if I am a large business, do I want to enter into a relationship as the mentor or the protege or in a joint venture to actually score higher on the point matrix? And there is merit to that particular question on both ends. As a regular business, can I actually just round out some of the skills that I don't have on my portfolio through services in relation to another company that you basically bring to the joint venture? And from the perspective of the smaller company, there's actually just a higher probability that if you enter into a mentor-protege relationship, that you can actually just leverage some of the opportunities of the mentor to help you actually qualify into this particular contract. You can do that as a joint venture. You can go do that on a teaming agreement. You can do that into different forms. The point that I'm trying to make here is that if you look at the definitions that I pulled here for the joint venture and for the mentor-protege program, right? There's some requirements that you're going to have to look through and consider, not just from the perspective of qualifying into the contract and putting your best foot forward, but there's some real and material things that you're going to have to deal with if you go through a mentor protege JV relationship, or if you actually just go on do just a teaming agreement, right? I have a little summary chart that I'm going to go into in a moment, but again, MPJVs, teaming agreements, these take time. And the one thing that you have right now is exactly that one commodity, time. So as we're waiting for the solicitation to happen, as you're looking at the long game on OASIS Plus and other particular opportunities, if you think that there's that benefit and you want to move forward with an MPJV, our advice is to make sure that you start working on that yesterday would be fine, right? So that's a kind of timeline that you need to be looking at, because there's going to be a lot of preparation that's going to be required. Not the least of which, for example, if you want to enter an MPJV, you have to pick a company that has been an approved SBA mentor, right? So that's not every company out there, right? So if you want to go and partake on that project and combine it as you go into OASIS Plus, you have to make sure you pick up from a list of selected companies. If you're going through that particular process, the company on the other end, as we see from Polaris and from other similar solicitations, can't use all of their qualifying projects with everyone that they enter into a relationship, right? So they have to pick and choose and give, time on both ends to make sure that they are also remaining relevant and competitive for the rest of the solicitation. So I made a quick list over here for you to know about the joint ventures, as far as what the elements are and how the work is going to be divided, because this is, again, relevant, right? As you move on forward and you enter into these relationships, for example, the smaller company is going to have a burden of performing some level amount of work. And that is actually just going to impact the P&L, because if you're an MPJV, you're going to have a joint accounting system, right? So all these things I'm facilitating and I'm putting in here for you to actually just read through, because they are relevant to the capture and relevant how you structure the capture plan. All of these slides are here prepared for you. I just want to take a quick look at this particular summary here. And when you look at the conclusion, right, a joint venture is a new entity. It's going to be a full-blown entity. It's going to have to basically be formed, legalized, and in a way that it can actually just claim to be and meet the small business standard. It's going to have a limited horizon. So when you're going through this decision, as you're qualifying into OASIS Plus, you got to make sure you're planning ahead on what's going to be your exit strategy from the relationship and how you can remain qualified under the OASIS Plus plan, right? Who's going to have control, how it's going to be managed, what are going to be the services offered, understanding that you cannot necessarily just double dip in those in all areas and using all past performance, on multiple relationships, which you can have. So you need to actually just be thinking about that right now, if it's going to be on your own, if it's going to be a joint venture, if it's going to be a team in agreement, and how you organize that. And again, the one thing that you have right now is time. You have the time to think about how you're going to structure your business case and how that may go on forward. So a little bit of research there done for you. I'm going to be putting the presentation on our website so you guys can download it, have access to it, use it as a reference, and more than anything, as a place for you to think through and go and find information on the web, just to facilitate that particular search in case you're not familiar with the MPJV program, teaming agreements, and what would be a good strategy as you pursue OASIS and other contracts, at the same time. For example, one could be Polaris or any other task order. There's going to be some limitations as far as what you can do, what you can use as a reference, and how that may change your strategy. So with that, I'm actually just going to hit the pause button, because I think that that was actually just the key to actually just talk about the things that we could be doing right now. But a quick look over here. I'm seeing Frida and I'm seeing Catherine in case I have any questions. I don't see anything on the dashboard. So a couple of things to leave you with when it comes down for the teaming. It takes time. It should be an established relationship. So what I mean by that particular statement is the government has been doing this for a hot second. They know exactly when companies join just for the benefit of having a qualification. And when that happens, they're going to be frowning upon those. So expect that there's going to be some scrutiny as far as what the relationships are. And the sooner you establish that relationship, the better it is for everybody, right? It is going to be an investment of time and effort for you to basically just form that mentor-protege JV relationship and or a team agreement. So plan ahead. And again, start early, because it does take some time. I see a question that I've been here, and this is from Frida. Thanks so much. It says, with regards to JVs, do they need to be an SBA approved to be a valid JV? Can a JV agreement meet this requirement in lieu of forming an illegal company? Okay, so a couple of things to unpack in there. So it doesn't have to be with regards to the JVs, do they need to be SBA approved to be a valid joint venture? So the answer is no. They have to be approved by the Small Business Administration if they want to enter into the formal mentor protege program that is sponsored by the SBA, right? So if you want to be part of that program, and the reason I mentioned that is in case you just want to do this for other solicitations as well, they have to be approved and be part of the program. But you can certainly have a joint venture that is just non-sanctioned and not part of the program, right? And the follow-on question that you have is, Is it forming a legal company? Let's just not use the term company, but say it's going to be a new legal entity that is going to have to meet some requirements, right? So it may not be perhaps a new company itself, but it's going to be a new entity that is going to be considered individually for the purpose of the evaluation and for the performance of the duties, right? So that's going to take some time, to iron out. Typically, the fastest thing that happens is we, the business development folks, get together. We agree on what we're going to do, how we're going to divvy up the work. And then the attorneys get together and they just do the attorney's thing and slow things down and just make sure they cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and so on and so forth. And that's going to take some time to create that unique entity. So did I answer your question? Glad to actually just go into additional detail. So I'm just going to be looking here. I see that somebody's typing a message. Yep, got it. Yep. And if you have more questions, glad to have those. We do have actually a couple of experts in contracts and contracts management that can give you some experience as far as how to do these things. So if we want to have that conversation later on, glad to follow up on it, right? So if there are no other questions on mentor, protege, JV, and similars, I'm going to leave you with a couple more thoughts as we wrap up. Keep a lookout on the solicitation for keywords and tricky phrases, right? So targeted representation, tier 3. Oops, I'm going to go back and restart the camera. There it is. So targeted representation, tier 3, best in class, easy to do business with, commodity and service pricing. So you can see in the solicitation and the documents that are reviewed that there are some keywords and tricky phrases that the government is leaving here just so they can have some latitude on when they make a judgment call to basically filter somebody. And you'll probably never get them to admit this, but be on the lookout for these things, right? The government wants to work with people that are easy to do business with. So you got to have your systems in order. You got to be part of the process. You got to be active in the solicitation process. So participate from the industry days, so on and so forth. So be on the lookout for these terms because they do actually, send some signals. So for example, targeted representation, it's almost like the old term quality spread that used to be in the service a couple of years back, which is to say that if you have 5 companies and they're all qualified, the government may choose to say, you know what, we only need 3 of these top 5. And so we're going to pick the 3 with the highest score. And that's why it's important for you to A, have a relationship so they know who you are, B, that your interest is genuine, and number 3, as you're making the preparation to bid, make sure you have your house in order so you can put your best foot forward and score as high as possible. So these discriminators don't come into play because there's always a possibility that they will. So just keep an eye out for those. We'll continue to add elements to the keywords and tricky phrases page as we move on forward. The last element that I'd like to discuss is basically preparing for OASIS Plus. So as motherhood and apple pie goes, please make sure that you're frequently doing a bid, no bid. If anything, not so you can say, am I going to bid OASIS Plus or not? Because that horse may be out of the barn and you may be full on and basically making this a pursuit. But from the perspective of how is this going to impact other solicitations that you actually are planning on going to chase. And so this is to say you don't have an infinite bench, you don't have an infinite capture team, you don't have an infinite proposal team. And so if you have to chase OASIS and anything else that comes in through, are you fully staffed? Are you going to be actually just able to pursue this and something else? Keep those questions, and those are easily addressed when you have frequent bid, no bid considerations for this and or other solicitations, all basically being addressed in the context of, in the same context and time period. Make sure that you have identified your capture and proposal team. Make sure that you actually have identified the folks that you want to team with. Make sure you protect those relationships and those assets, because we all know that even when you're working on a solicitation, especially if you're working on a solicitation and a contract for revenue comes up, so you may lose some of those SMEs. So make sure that you have your contingency plans on who's going to be the talent that's going to help you answer the questions for this particular proposal, which we expect to be through electronic submission. So not really heavy lifting on the write-up, but all the same, we want to make sure you have the right team available to you. And lastly, make sure that as you're going through the process of preparing for OASIS Plus, understanding that this is going to happen in the fall after the end of the fiscal year, make sure that you actually have the right budget to host everybody for 1099s if you're going to need them. Make sure that you go through that process now so that you're not surprised when things actually just happen at the end of the fiscal year, which is going to be, again, Q4 calendar year 2022. Other things, again, I cannot overemphasize, organize your qualifying past performance projects, review and build your pricing catalog, check your NAICS, make sure that you have actually just updated SAM on all of the NAICS that you qualify, so that you don't actually just have to be disqualified because your record on SAM is not updated. Make sure that you have your CPARs, organized, that if you have anything that's negative on the CPARs, you can rectify or address those for corrective action. Again, some contracts you may be able to use by addressing your corrective actions in the CPARs if there are any, and if not, excellent, good on you. Make sure you have your CPARs ready to go and for use. Review your certifications. Make sure that everything is current. Don't let anything lapse. The last thing that you like to do is basically have somebody that you're basically putting forward to be an asset or provide some services, and you lose those certifications. So if there's anything like that, make sure that you have everything current so you don't put your bid and your solicitation at risk. So with that, we've spent about 30 minutes here on the floor, and I appreciate you actually just taking the time to listen to me. But I want to know if there are any other questions from the floor. So I'm going to turn around, looking at the board here from Frida and from Catherine. Any questions that you'd like for me to address, or any other information that you'd like for me to cover today, and information that you'd like for me to cover on the next webinar? Any thoughts or suggestions or questions? I see that Frida is writing something, so I'm going to hang up. Nothing there. So it looks like we're all scored away. Excellent. Glad that you took some notes. And again, I tend to speak really fast. So to help people, continue with their notes and kind of like digest this, I am going to I'm going to make sure that we post this webinar on our website. You'll have access to that tomorrow. So if you want to go back through the presentation, you can watch it again. Also, the presentation will be made available to you, so you can actually just pull it. So expect that supposed to happen sometime later on today. If not, certainly by tomorrow, you'll have access to the presentation, to the video, and to any other news that we have to post relative to OASIS Plus on our page, which is tridentproposals.com/OASIS. And so with that, if there are no other questions, I think that is all that I had to make sure that, you are actually properly served and that you can actually just get all the information that you need. So if you have any questions, again, you can hit me up at nelson@tridentproposals.com. Or if you want to basically just go to the website and look information that is unique to OASIS, visit us at tridentproposals.com/OASIS. So nothing else. Looks like Catherine and Frida, you are all good to go. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. And we'll see you on the next webinar, which will happen probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, unless something new drops in. So thanks a lot. Have a great rest of the day, great end of the week, and talk to you soon.